Alright, let's begin the leather tutorial on the CD. Now this leather is really cool, it's very interesting. Now you can use it on, let's say, like game type stuff, maybe a game cover or a game website, even maybe like a western type look. It has that old western cowboy bar type look, and you may need something to put your clan name on for, like your clan group for Quake or some other game, and it's just a really neat piece. And so let's go ahead and get started. I want you to come up here to File and select New. And for this image, let's go ahead and put in 550 for the width, and then for the height, let's do 400. And we want to make sure that's pixels for both the width and the height, and the resolution 72, color mode RGB, and the background contents must be black. Okay, if you have black already on the toolbar here, if you look on the toolbar and you can see your black background color, if that is black, then go ahead and select background color from the background contents. If it's not black, then you'll need to just fill in the background of the image with the paint bucket tool. So if you're all set to go, just go ahead and click OK, and here's our image. Alright, and the first thing, let's go over here and create a new layer on the Layers palette. And next we will create a fixed rectangular selection for the shape of our leather. So come over on the toolbar and select the rectangular marquee tool. And then up here on the options bar where it says Style, click on that and a little menu will pop down and select Fixed Size. And for the width, let's go with about 460. Will work pretty good. And for the height, let's do 228. Okay, and then click on the image and you will see the selection up here. And go ahead and click, or you can move your cursor in the middle of that selection. You can just click and position that right in the middle there, just to get it just right. Okay, now we need to set some foreground and background colors here. Really easy to do. Come over on the toolbar and click on the foreground color to bring up the color picker. And then now right down here where the hex value is, I want you to enter in this. Go ahead and enter in FFCC99. Okay, and it gives us that color there that we're looking for. And make sure only web safe colors is unchecked, just in case there's any, just in case it forces itself to a web safe color only, and that might not work out, but I don't think we're going to have any problems. So if you got that, then go ahead and click OK, and then click on the background color here on the toolbar, and that will bring up the color picker for the background. And the background color, we're going to do the exact same thing, but this time we're going to select or enter in 663300, and it'll give us that color for the background. And if you have that, go ahead and click OK. Alright, now we need to apply the clouds filter to the selection here, okay, because it's going to help us generate the texture for our leather. And come up here to filter. And then down here, render, select clouds, just one time. It's just a one-click filter, and then you're all done, so it's pretty easy. Okay, after that, we just have to go over here to the quick mask mode, and we need to change to quick mask. And so over on the toolbar, you'll see this button here, and it says Edit in Quick Mask Mode. Click on that, and you'll see it change. You'll see our mask in the background, which is sort of like a dark red color. Okay, and we're in the quick mask mode because this is going to allow us to create or make some unique edges for our texture or for our leather. And so in order to do that, come right over and select the paintbrush on the toolbar, and then come up here where the brushes preset picker is, and let's see what size here. I think 19 pixel size hard brush will be just fine. Yeah, make sure that's a hard brush where it says, see where it says hard round, and if you come down here or over here, it might say like a soft round. So we don't want to use soft, we want to make sure that's a hard brush. And go ahead and double click on it to select that, and then right over here on the image, we need to paint in from the edge, and I'll show you what I mean here. This is where you use where your creative juices come into hand. So this is one of those parts of the tutorial that's really fun. So just come over here to the image and just paint in a little bit and go up and down and create like sort of like little ripples in the leather here. And now some people may look at this and some people may choose to use like a filter to create the edges of the leather. But see, when you use the filter has a very distinctive look to it. And if if somebody uses that filter or a filter to create edges like we're doing here, everybody's going to know what you did to create the edges. You just use that filter. But this way, when someone looks at it, they're going to go, how did you do that? And it's because most people don't want to go in there and use the mouse and do this. And so they look at that and go, wow, that's really cool. And they might give you a compliment on that. So get a good habit of doing stuff by hand as much as possible. Not too much unless you're a really good airbrushed artist, because I'm not at all. I'm not really good at airbrushing, and so I try to limit myself. But as much as possible, I come in here and just use the paintbrush to give things a very different look. Okay, I'm gonna come in here and I'm not gonna stop the video. Like again, I'm gonna go ahead and just do this real time, and I have to be a little creative as I'm doing the video here at the same time. So, and just watch what I do. I'm just going around and make sure there's not too many sharp points on the edges there. I don't know if that might make it look non-realistic or not, but you got the idea. No, it's not that bad, is it? Okay. Just try to make all of it look different, a little different, like really random. And one thing that I've noticed or that helps later on when you look at the final result, at the very corner, you see how the corners are very sharp, you know how they go to a point on the mask there? We'll come over right to the corner and just click and make sure, try to make these corners of the leather rounded. Okay, so just come down here and just use the brush and just kind of sort of round the colors off a little bit, just so it looks a little more realistic. There we go, just like that. That's looking pretty sharp right there. And remember, this is your first time. Doesn't have to be perfect. Learn how to do it and then go back and then just make it look phenomenal. That's how I do things. I just get the basic concept. I mean, the first time I did this leather, it looked terrible. So I had to go back and redo it and then do it over and over and over again until I really refined it and made it look just like $1,000,000. So, okay, that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to go ahead and we need to switch back to normal mode. Or actually standard mode, normal mode. Let's see what it's called here. It's called standard mode. So we click on that and that'll take back to the normal mode that we usually work in Photoshop. And then we need to invert that selection. Come up here to select and inverse it. Okay, and then press the delete key on the keyboard and you will delete the outer stuff that we didn't want on that leather, and that will leave us with just a nice rough edge, and that's exactly what we want. I can come up here and just select the selection. You can see the edge of our leather that we created. Pretty neat, huh? And that's what the quick mask mode is. It's so nice to use because we can do things like this. And even if you messed up in quick mask mode, you can always easily go back and fix it. So that's why we use the quick mask mode. But the next step is to apply a filter. And what the filter will do for us is apply a texture to the leather. And so we will come up here to filter, and down here where it says texture, let's select texturizer, the very bottom one here. Okay, and for the texture, let's use sandstone. You can see it's already selected there. And for the scaling, enter in 56. Okay, 56%. And the relief will be 1. And for the light direction, top right will work out for us. And this is, just experimental, but this is how I think it looks the best to me. But after you have all that, just go ahead and click OK, and to apply that texture to that. Next, we will make the holes for the nails in our leather. And then so just come up here to the toolbar and select the elliptical marquee tool and hold down Shift so we can get a nice perfect circle. And something just about like, and you might not be able to see it if you're viewing the small video, but I'm going to go ahead and move the selection over just to a little brighter area of the leather there so you can see the selection a little bit better. But just a hole about that size, that looks pretty good. And then move that selection over to one of the corners of the leather and just right up on the top corner there. And then press the delete key on the keyboard to create that hole. See that? And then I'm going to come right over here to this side and do the same thing. I'm going to press the delete key. And then down here. And over on the bottom left corner. And there we go. And we'll put nails in those holes later on. That's like the last step of the video. So, but when you have all that, just go ahead up here to select and deselect. All right, now let's duplicate this layer 1, which is the first layer that we created with the leather on it. Go ahead and click on that layer and then drag it to the new layer icon on the bottom of the layers palette there to make a duplicate. And after you've done that, go ahead and make that new layer 1 copy. Just make that invisible for a second because we're going to do something with the bottom layer or the layer number 1 here really fast. I want you to come up here and go to Image Adjustments and select Brightness and Contrast. And we're going to brighten the layer number 1. Okay, over here, brightness, just move that up to about 70, about 70 or so. That looks pretty good. And just go ahead and click OK. And then now we can turn on we can make the layer 1 copy visible now. And then while layer 1 is still activated, we need to offset that layer. Okay, so click on layer 1 and then select the move tool on the toolbar. And I want you to push the left arrow on the keyboard once. You see that? And you can see the bottom layer sneak through, giving us this highlighted edge on the left there. Now, press the up arrow key on the keyboard once. There we go. And we sort of create this sort of like a bevel effect. But this is a very, very slight bevel, and that's what we want for this tutorial. That's why we're not using the bevel and emboss effect. This sort of gives us a much lighter, more distinctive result. So, okay, after we have offsetted that layer, activate layer 1 copy, which should be the very top layer on the layers palette. And go ahead and hold down the control key on the keyboard. And then click on layer 1 copy, and you will select it. Next, let's come over here to the toolbar and select the brush, the paintbrush. And we need to create some light highlights on this leather to make it a little more realistic. And let me show you how to do that. Come up here and select on the brushes preset picker, scroll down, and let's select a soft brush here to create some shadows and highlights. Looks like 65 is going to work just fine. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the 65 pixel soft brush to select it. And then over on the toolbar, set the foreground to black. Just scroll all the way down to here. You can use the swatches palette too in Photoshop. If you're more comfortable with the swatches palette, then go ahead and use that. I'm going to go ahead and select black in the color picker, which is all the way down at the bottom left here, and then click OK. And then I'm going to position that our brush here just at the top, just to the outside of the selection on the leather, and just paint a little bit. And you can see it darken just a little bit, but don't come down here too much because then that won't look right. Okay, we just want to darken just the edge slightly, just a little bit around there, and this is going to help create somewhat of like a 3D look to our leather. It's going to make it pop out a little bit, just so it doesn't look so, have that flat look to it. This is really going to help a lot. Just come down here and you can see the edges just darken just a little bit. And the brush is so soft that it sort of leads over to beyond the selection area, and that it helps us just get a very, very slight shadow on the edge, and that's what we want. So that's looking pretty good right there. Okay, and then next set the foreground color to white, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing, but this time it's going to be on the bottom of the leather here. So I'm going to come right along here, and you can see the edge just really lighten up just a little bit on the bottom. This is sort of an optional, this one part with the white here is kind of optional. You don't have to do it. It's not going to totally take away the leather look or anything like that, and that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and leave the side here just like it is, and all right, I like it. Okay, we can just come up here to select and deselect a selection. You can see what we have here, starting to look more cool. And all right, well, we're going to merge the layers. We're going to merge the layers here on the layers palette. So link layer 1 copy and layer 1 together. And depending on what's selected, the layer 1 copy should be selected. So just come next to layer number 1 down here in the empty box and click on that. And that means we've linked it together. And to merge those two layers together, come up here to layer and down here where it says merge linked. Okay, just merging what is linked only. There we go. And next we will do one of the major effects of the leather. We will pinch the image. We will pinch this leather to give it a real interesting look. Come up here to filter and then come down to distort and select pinch. Okay, and now depending on how large your leather is, if you have a much larger image, let's say you're using this for print, you may need to increase the percentage amount of the pinch from the amount that we're using on this tutorial. Okay, so now pinch doesn't have a preview. Okay, so you have to use, it does have a preview, but it's built into the actual filter dialog here. It won't show the preview in the background. So when you open up the pinch filter, you'll have to zoom out here, so we can see the whole image within this little window here. And you can see the amount that I'm using for this tutorial is 40, and that gives us a nice result. What you want to do is have the edges being like stretched, sort of looking stretched, like the nails are pulling the leather's pinned up on something, or like on a board or on a wall. Not necessarily a very light stretch. That might not give the effect that we're looking for. We're going to have to stretch that quite a bit more than that. And if you see if I go too much, then it sort of doesn't have this starts to lose its character, and it doesn't really look as realistic anymore. So I think about 35-40 is going to work really good for this image. I'm going to go ahead and go 40 here. That's usually a little more than I usually go, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because I like it. All right, when you're all done with that, go ahead and click OK. Let's sharpen this leather now. Come up here to filter and then come down to sharpen and select unsharpen mask. And enter in 500 for the amount right at the top here. And for the radius, let's do a 0.3. And for the threshold, let's go with 3. And that'll sharpen up the edges and the texture of the leather there. So if you have all that, just go ahead and click OK. And now let's zoom out of the image. Come over here and select the zoom tool on the toolbar and position the zoom tool right in the middle. And then hold down the Alt key, which is the Option key on the Macintosh. Hold that down and you'll see the little minus symbol on the zoom tool. And click the mouse once, and you'll zoom out about 66%. There we go. Okay, and next, go ahead and create a new layer. All right, and now we need to select the elliptical marquee tool, and this will allow us to create the the wrinkles and the fold in the leather. Really makes it look hot. Come over here on the toolbar and select the I can't even talk today, I don't know what it is. The elliptical marquee tool on the toolbar. And then right over on the image, position the cursor just above the left corner of the leather. Okay, and this is probably maybe the most trickiest part of the tutorial. It's not hard, maybe a little awkward the first time you do it, but the second time is going to be just a piece of cake. So position that crosshair just above the top left corner there, and hold down the mouse, and then drag to the other corner, almost like to the bottom of the right corner. Just so you can see where my crosshair is there, and then down. And what we're doing is we're creating this. You can see the bottom of the selection. We want to create this thing where the selection is going from the top left hole all the way to the top right hole on the leather, sort of just like hanging down from that. You can see, let me show you here. I'm going to go ahead and move this selection up, and I'll show you where it really needs to be, just about right there. And that is maybe just a tad maybe too wide, but I'm not going to go ahead and correct it. So we need to go ahead and get going on this tutorial here. But you can see how the selection goes from this hole, and it goes all the way, it swings down, okay, it sags down, and it goes all the way up to the hole on the right. That is what you want. You don't want something that looks like this, okay? That's not going to work. So you have to come just right above the top left arrow here and click the mouse and just draw the selection. That just sort of hangs down, it goes from hole to hole. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and position that just right about there. This helps it look more realistic when we do it this way. Okay, if you have that, now we can get over to the fun part. Let's go up here to Edit, and down here select Stroke. Okay, and we're going to stroke this selection. And in the width, let's enter in 30. Okay, and for the color, that'll need to be white. If it's not already white right now, and go ahead and click OK. All right, and then over on the keyboard, I want you to tap the top arrow about 12 times. Okay, because we need to position the bottom of the selection just above the white stroke, and you'll see what I mean when we get down here. I'm going to go ahead and do it right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that puts it just about where we need it. Should just look about like that. You can actually drag the selection up if you want. You don't have to use the keyboard, but anyways, let's come up here to Edit once more and go down to Stroke. And this time in the width, I want you to enter in about 10 pixels. And for the color, we're going to use black this time. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now we need to take that selection down to the bottom of the white stroke. Okay, and that's going to take about 14 taps. So you ready? I'm ready. Let's go. I'm going to go ahead. It's the bottom arrow now, the arrow pointing down on the keyboard. 14 times. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And it puts it just perfectly, just about right on the edge of the bottom of that white stroke there. That's just perfect. And let's go ahead and stroke this now. Go up into Edit and select Stroke. And that'll be, the width is 10, black. Everything should be already set up. And go ahead and click OK. And there you go. And now we can just select the selection. All right, okay, let's see what's next here. Let's go ahead and blur that layer. Layer number 1, come up here to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and enter in, about 10 Gaussian blur there. There you go. That looks pretty good, and you can see what it's done here. It's created this, we have a highlight in the middle, and the top and the bottom is darkened, and that sort of makes it look like it's popped out a little bit, like it's a ripple or wrinkle in the leather, and that's exactly what we want. So if you have that, if you've entered in 10 pixels, go ahead and click OK. All right, next come over to the Layers palette, and right on the Blending Modes menu here, I want you to select Luminously on the very bottom of the Blending Modes menu. Okay, and then I'll just blend that in a little bit. And after we've done that, we're pretty much done. We just need to erase away the excess stroke area around the leather there, and that's really easy to do. All you have to do is select the eraser tool with a pretty decent sized brush. Doesn't have to be that big. A 10 pixel or a 100 pixel soft brush will be just fine. And make sure it's the eraser tool and not the paintbrush, and just come right over and then paint away the area that you don't want. Okay, and that'll just leave the wrinkle in the leather there. See that? That wasn't so hard. All right. And then after that, to make it blend in just a little bit more, over in the layers palette where it says opacity, put in about 80%. Just put 80 there. You don't have to put the percent symbol. It'll automatically do that for you. Okay, we can just press enter on the keyboard. And now let's zoom back to our 100% view, or our actual pixels. Come up here to view and select actual pixels, and to get that back. And let's do one final touch on our wrinkle on our leather, just to really make it blend in a little bit more. You can see down here we have this part of the texture, or this part of the leather is textured, but the part we just did with the wrinkle, it doesn't look like it's textured very well. So and when we do texture it, that'll make it blend in with the whole piece of leather. So let's come up here to filter and select noise, and by adding some noise, it'll just add just enough texture to that area to make it blend in. So about noise, let's do about 1.55%, and make sure Gaussian blur is checked and monochromatic is checked down here, and go ahead and click OK. And you can see by just adding just a little bit of noise, it makes it blend in better. Okay. All right, over on the layers palette once more, let's go ahead and make a new layer over there. And we're going to use the single row marquee for this next part. If you don't use a single row marquee very often, we're going to use it on this tutorial. So come over on the toolbar, and it's the third one here, single row marquee tool. All right. And position that just about, not all the way on the bottom of the leather, but just about, maybe a half inch above the bottom there, just about where you see where my cursor is here. And go ahead and just click the mouse once, and it will create this, this horizontal one row selection there. So that's exactly what we want. And we need to stroke that selection. So come up here to edit and select stroke. And then we're pretty much going to do the same method how we did on the top, but this time it's going to be on the bottom. And so we need to come in here where the width is, stroke width, and enter in 30. And then for the stroke color, that will be white. There we go. And by the way, if just to make sure the location for all these strokes that we do, it's going to be center, and then blending mode's normal, and so. Yours, I don't know if yours may be different or not. It might be defaulted to maybe another setting, but for this tutorial, we're using the center location for the stroke. Okay, and go ahead and click OK. And there we go. We've stroked that. Okay, next come over to the keyboard, and using the arrow pointing down, the down arrow on the keyboard, push that 15 times. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then come up here to edit and select stroke, and then input 10 pixels for the width, and the color will be black, and go ahead and click OK. There we go. Perfect. And we can come up here to select and deselect the selection. Now come up here to filter and then select blur, Gaussian blur, and enter in about 14.7 for the blur, 14.7. There we go. And go ahead and click OK. And for the layers blending modes menu, on that layer, select luminosity on the very bottom, okay, to blend that in. Great. And you can see we just blended the bottom wrinkle there on the bottom of the leather. And right now what we have to do is just like we did to the top, we come in here and select the eraser tool, and we should have the 100 pixel size soft brush already selected. You can see here, and we'll just erase away some of the area around or on the outside of the leather there that we don't want. And we can even actually control click layer number 1 copy, and then invert that. This is another way to erase the outer area. You can see if you didn't get it quite enough, you can do it this way. Inverse the selection. Now, if you're a beginner, you might want to do it the way like with the eraser, but this is just another way to do it. And we would inverse the selection and press the delete key to delete any outside area that we've used, any stroking area outside of the leather. I'll go ahead and press delete key just to confirm that, make sure there's nothing else outside of that leather. Okay, perfect. I hope that wasn't too confusing. And now click back on the top layer. Make sure the top layer is selected, which is the last wrinkle we did on the leather, and set the opacity to about 75. Just put in 75 and then press enter on the keyboard. Okay, that'll make it blend in just a little bit better there. All right, and now link all the layers together except the background layer. Okay, so coming down here, layer number 1, which is the first wrinkle we did, and link the leather layer, which is layer 1 copy now. And so you should have this layer, and this layer all linked together. You don't have to link the top one. You don't have to link the layer that is activated, because Photoshop automatically links the layers to the activated layer. So if you have that, just come up here to layer and select merge linked. Okay, and it's just going to combine everything together into this just one layer. That's all we did. Now, one of my favorite parts of the tutorial is burning the edges of the leather. And this is where you get to make it look even more realistic. Come over here on the toolbar and select the burn tool. Okay, and you know what? It looks like I have a 65 pixel soft brush already selected. After you select the burn tool on the toolbar, come up here to the brushes preset picker and select, it should be one of the default brushes in Photoshop. And so select 65 soft round brush and just double click on it to select it. And then come over to the image and just along the edges, just make them a little darker, burn them in a little bit, and it makes it look really cool. And if the very bottom of the leather is a little light on the edges, then you can go ahead and make them just a little bit darker. That's why before I said that part was optional, because somebody may not want the bottom all light like that. But you can darken some areas if you don't want the whole thing light. Really creates an interesting, cool effect. If it's a little too dark, I can go ahead and undo that. There we go. Okay, that's looking pretty sweet right there. And let's go ahead now and go up here to Image, Adjustments, and select Levels. Okay, and this is going to give us an overall nice finish with the whole lighting aspect of the effect. In the levels, enter in 0 for the first input, and for the second input, enter in 0.88, and the last one, enter in 229. Okay, and you can see it just gives it that overall, polishes it, enhances the leather a little bit, making it look really nice. And you can see this is what it was before, and this is after. And this is sort of optional. I thought it needed this treatment, but you may not think that it needs all that enhancing. If you don't, then you don't have to apply the levels to it. If you like it like this, then hey, that's just fine. I like it just a little bit brighter, so but that's going to work for me. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now the next step, we will create the nails for the leather. But before I do that, if you look on the leather closely, look on the very top left corner. Let me actually select another tool here. I'm going to use the Move tool to show you this. Look on the very top left corner. You can see it's going to a point. Now that is because originally we used a straight rectangular selection, and we didn't quite get the top point there. If yours looks like that, then come in here with the eraser tool and select a smaller eraser brush, like maybe like a 13 size, and then come in here and just erase away just a little bit of that edge, okay, or maybe round it, yeah, give it a nice rounded edge. And look around at the other ones too, because sometimes that one part can kind of give it away. Might not make it look as realistic. So just come around here and there we go. That looks pretty good. All right. And so let's continue on making the nails. We're going to hammer some nails in our leather so we can post it up on something. I'm going to come in here over on the toolbar and select the elliptical marquee tool. Okay, and before I make my selection, we're going to need to make a new layer. We don't want to draw directly on the leather, just in case we need to move the nails around, which we'll probably be doing. We need to make a new layer for that. Okay, I'm going to hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and just draw out the size nail head that I want. There we go, and I'm going to pull this over in the lighter area of the leather there so you can see it. This is my selection. Okay, and then after that, let's go ahead and fill that selection in with gray, maybe like a lighter gray color. I'm going to come over to the foreground color here and just pick more, something like a light, maybe a 50% gray, maybe a little lighter than 50%. Maybe we can go like a 40 or 35% light gray. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And come over here to the toolbar and select the paint bucket and just fill that in, just like that. Okay. All right, and next we need to apply a filter to this nail to make it look a little more realistic. Come up here to filter, and down here, texture, where it says texture, select grain from that menu there. Over here for intensity, enter in 17. Okay, and then the next one here where it says contrast, make sure that's about 66. Okay, I've set all these to what I feel that is best, or to that what gives the best result for the nail. And then for the grain type, let's go ahead and make that an enlarged in grain type there. And if you've got that, just go ahead and click OK. And you can see we've applied a little texture to that nail there. And go ahead and go up here to select and deselect. Now, if it might be a little bright for you, it might not be, it might not look realistic. We can go up here to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, and we can darken that a little bit. Okay, just to make it look a little better there. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. And then position that nail head just above, just on the right corner, or I'm sorry, the top left corner, not over the hole, because if it's over the hole, it's not going to look that realistic. It needs to be offset a little bit so you can see the hole. It looks like the nail's actually going through the hole there, or it's stretching the leather across, and the leather's hanging down, and the holes are stretching, and that's the whole effect that we're looking for. So, and once you have that, to make it look a little better, to make the nail head look a little better, we can come up here to layer style and add a bevel and emboss effect. Okay, I'm just going to pull this up here so we can see what's going on. And for the best result, for the depth, actually down here where it says size, let's make an adjustment there first and put in 1 pixel. That'll just give us a very, very slight bevel. And for the technique of the bevel, select either chisel hard or chisel soft. Chisel soft will give it somewhat of a more of a sharper edge, really harsh edge. You can see if I turn up the depth here all the way, you can see it's a little more grungy around the edge there using the chisel soft. If I use a chisel hard, it's just a little softer. I'm going to probably go with the chisel hard. It makes more of the head of the nail show. So that looks pretty good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we're still going here. I'm going to go ahead and select the rectangular marquee tool because we're going to need to select the nail, and we're going to duplicate the nail. But we're going to duplicate the nail on the same layer. We're not going to duplicate layers here. Well, you can see I have my fixed size already set. Because of the last time we used the rectangular selection. So you'll need to come up here where it says style and put that back to normal. Okay, and that way we can have, we can create our own selection for the size we need. It doesn't really matter what size the selection is as long as we have the nail head selected just like that. And if you have that, come over to the keyboard and hold down Control Shift Alt. Hold down all three of those keys at the same time. And on the Macintosh, that is Command Shift Option. So hold those down and you'll get this, you see the crosshair change to this like double arrow type cursor, and that's good. And you click right in the middle of the selection and hold down those keys, and then you can drag over a copy within that layer. You see that? Right over here to the top. And if you need to come down, move down or up a little bit, you can go ahead and release the mouse, or I'm sorry, release the keys on the keyboard just for a second, just to position that. Okay. There we go. And then to make a third duplicate of that nail, hold down Control Shift Alt once more, and that is Command Shift Option on the Macintosh, and then drag down another copy of that. I'm going to go ahead and release the keys and just position that just off to the right of the hole there, sort of down and to the right, just so we see a little bit of the hole showing through there, because that's going to give us the best result. There we go. I'm going to hold down the keys again and come over to the other side. Just offset that just a little bit. There we go, looking good. And one of the final things here, actually go ahead real quick, go up here to select and deselect that selection. One of the final steps here is having a drop shadow behind the nails. Okay, because then that way it'll make like the nails, make them look like they're popping out. And this really is a cool effect. So come up here to Layer, Layer Style, and select Drop Shadow. Okay, and now the default setting may be all you need. You might want to change the opacity a little bit if you want. Sometimes too much might cover up the hole there. You see there on the top left nail there, you can see too much shadow will cover up our hole, and having that hole there really gives it a unique, realistic look. You see that, how it's just barely showing through? That looks really sweet. I love that. And so that looks pretty cool. All right, looking good. That looks really good. I'm gonna go ahead and click OK. And if needed, not always needed though, we can sharpen the leather once more. Okay, not always needed. But if you want to do that, come down here to Layer 2 and then come up here to Filter, Sharpen, on Sharp Mask. And of course that's a little harsh there. Maybe like for the radius, you can do a 0.2 for the radius and then turn it down a little bit. But you know what? For this leather here, it looks like I really don't need any more sharpening. If you wanted the edges sharpened, or if you're going to make the leather smaller, if you plan on resizing the leather after you're done with it, then it may be a good idea to sharpen the leather now, so that way when it resizes it looks a little more sharper, because when we resize things in Photoshop, the resampling can tend to blur some of the edges and things. So there you go. That's about it there. That's how we can create some interesting leather in Photoshop. Remember, like I said, it can be a sign, something you can post on a wall, maybe a cartoon. You can put some letters on here saying, like, you know, you put your name on here and everything and put it on your website. And so there you go. Have fun.